What a weekend we had in Munich. Now, we should have been talking about this. But we started off talking about this on Friday, the weigh-in. Well, that set the tone in many ways for what was only going to get worse in many ways. This is the night, though. Surely the fighting's going to start soon. The proper fighting, that is. Frank in the middle there, breaking them up.
Italy!
And you expect it to calm down a little bit at the end, especially after 12 torrid rounds. It didn't, though. Still baiting. Big Vlad comes in. Frank Warren on the edges. Vlad getting in Derek's face there.
Even you too, Sunshine. Yes, Sunshine.
Even you, Sunshine, he says to Vlad. We'll do it in England, someone shouts out. That was at the fight. And then this is at the post-fight press conference. That's David Haye, by the way.
Why are you not fighting now?
Excuse me, you have to box up first against the person over there who showed hard. You showed the toe.
David, how's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe?
3 times in a row.
David, you want to tell me that in my face? You want to tell me my face?
You lost the
You want to tell me my face?
Tyson 3
All right, tell me my face.
David, round, David.
Let go. Let proper. Excuse me. Stand behind me. You tell me my face. Huh? You want to fight me? Jens, you lost me. You mad? You lost me. You lost me.
You're not free to go.
You lost me! Go! What's the British challenge? Put down, David. No. You lost me! He lost me! Please. He lost me!
You're right, but
Huh? Good with that glass, ain't it, David?
Now, we had to show that, I believe, from the start to the finish. We couldn't just say there was an altercation. We couldn't just show some of the terrible grainy stuff that appeared online. We got that from the German broadcasters. That's theirs. That's RTL's official coverage of what happened at the post-fight press conference. So any cuts or additions, nothing to do with us here at Box Nation. We haven't cut that to make it look sexier. We haven't cut that to make it look more dramatic and nastier. That's what we have. That's the official tape from RTL. Now, to go over the weekend's events from the slap to what was a fabulous 12-round fight, and then what happened afterwards. I'm joined here in my fabulous little studio by a veteran Sun columnist, a columnist now, but journalist for many years, Colin Hart, and Derek Chisora's promoter. I'm going to start with you, Frank, if I can. Now, there was a long build-up to this fight, 2 or 3 months, okay, and it was friendly, a lot of banter, and suddenly, on the Friday, it seemed to go, well, it seemed to start to go wrong with the slap. Did you have any idea that, A, it would go wrong then, and that it possibly might get worse?
Well, first of all, I wasn't there at the weigh-in, unfortunately, and I think had I been there, that may not have happened. And if you watch it again, if you watch what happens, you see the two of them. Normally a weigh-in afterwards, the press want to get the two guys in a photo head to head.
The face-off picture.
Face-off, we call it. Then they turn to look at each other.
Yeah.
And normally, if it's my promotion, I'll be standing there. But you look what gets. These guys just get straight in and put their heads on each other, and there's a bit of, budding, and there's no one there who's pushing them apart. So nothing's happening, and then for some crazy minute, Derek does something stupid and slaps him. But where was any security? Where was somebody from the promotion being in the middle of these guys? And I'm not trying to say that should be an excuse for it to not have happened, but where was somebody to actually stop it and take control of it?
And Colin, what were your thoughts when you first saw that? I mean, you've been at enough weigh-ins where shenanigans, sometimes worse than that, have happened. What were your first thoughts when you actually got a viewing of that slap?
I thought, what has got into his head? What a stupid thing to do. For starters, you're antagonising the world heavyweight champion on his home patch, and you're going to make him even more angry and even more determined to knock you out. That was my immediate thought.
Okay.
Obviously, what the hell has he done that for? It's dreadful. It shouldn't happen.
And both aware that at that point he's probably going to get some type of fine or reprimand or knuckles wrap. So now we move to the fight itself, Frank, and you're in the ring here. You're very much involved in this next sequence of events. It's the coming into the ring. Now, I know we're going to talk about that first. I know you want to backtrack slightly, but let's deal with what we've got the tape of. They come into the ring, and they're sort of on each other again, and you have to separate them. I don't think we've got footage of it. That's my trance live voice. So they get up in the ring and suddenly you're in between them again.
I'm in between. Well, that happens again with fighters. You see, somebody always tries to go over the corner I suppose it's just part of the fight game. You get guys walking, they try to get in the face of each other. I've seen it many, many times. That's nothing unusual. And what you're trying to do to your fight is come back to your corner and wait till the referee calls you. That is, for me, is nothing unusual. But then we have that. Then we have the gob. First of all, he's not fighting Vladimir.
Yeah.
We're talking about him getting in.
With Vitali.
Vladimir stands there. He gets in his face. But there are a lot of stuff that is unforgivable. What he did, spitting him is wrong. You can't condone it. It's 100% not acceptable. But there was a lot of stuff prior to that that I think led to the situation between him and
Vladimir. And these are the 2 cancelled fights, or what went on downstairs in the corridor? I think we've got footage of the corridor stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, before you go to that, what you've got to go back. You go back sort of 12, 14 months ago. He was due to fight, as you know, he was due to fight Vladimir. He pulled out on the eve of the fight after Derek trained for quite a while. He was quite rightly upset. It was then rescheduled, and then they pulled out again. And then in stepped David Haye, who made a lot of money from the fight,
sure,
as did Klitschko, and he was left out in the cold and didn't receive a penny compensation, not even an offer of a fight on the undercard.
For neither fight, not a penny?
No, not a penny in compensation or anything. And the bottom line of all of it was that, he was upset. I was upset. I thought that was wrong. It was, you talk about treating people professionals and treating guys. They're fighters as well. They're, as well as promoters, they're fighters. They didn't treat Derek correctly for that. Then the fight comes on again, and as you know, whenever these guys fight, if either Vitali or Vladimir fight, one of the brothers is always in the corner.
Yeah, that's what they do.
So then we go back now to the dressing room. They're taping hands. Dean Powell is taping Derek's hand, as he's always done for all of his fights, and as he's putting on some plasters on his hands. And prior to that, it was agreed that both fighters would use their own bandaging and tape at the rules meeting. So there's no problem with that.
Which Vladimir didn't attend.
But that's allowed. If both parties agree to it, no problem. Everybody's cool with that. So he's taping his hands, and in and Vladimir comes in, being the representative from the other side, to watch it happening, whilst Tunde was in Klitschko's corner watching him being taped. So then he starts performing. We take the tapes off. Well, first of all, it's a bit intimidating to have Vladimir in there anyway. There's no great history between him and Derek. He's standing there, he's giving him the evil eye, all the stuff that goes with it. And that's the subtle way that they get under your skin.
Sure.
And Derek's a bit of a volatile character, and he said, get him out. But eventually we said that. So he said, no, we want the bandage cut off. In comes the guy from the German Commission, cut the bandage, take the bandage off. You know, you're not allowed to do it this way. We go through all the rigmarole. I asked for Charlie Giles, who's the
Border Control Inspector, who's there. Looking after
looking after the British fighters' interests, and I also asked for him to find a WBC supervisor, because at the end of the day, it's their title that they're fighting for. It's not for the British title. It's not for the German title, and it was agreed in the rules meaning what would happen. So we're in there. In comes a guy, and there's all these arguments going around Derek. Derek just says, "I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting." And what was left of the bandage tears him off goodbye. So I'm trying to calm him down, and I said to the guys, this is not going to happen, this fight. I said, by the way, I want you all out of the dressing room, and we'll talk outside. Charlie Giles was there. Dean said, Charlie, this is how I always wrap his hands. Like Frank, I've been coming to Germany for years. We've never had a problem with this. So Charlie sort of looked at it. Well, he said, this is what we do. I don't think Charlie Giles even understood the wrapping of hands, to be quite honest. And suddenly he disappeared. He was gone. We couldn't find him.
But just vanished.
Disappeared, gone. And then I had to deal with it, and I don't know if you've got it. You might.
We showed that clip of you talking to Vladimir in a corridor.
I go outside with Vladimir. I explain what the position is. I say I'm not going to argue with you about it. This is up to the WBC. It's their title to decide. Rules meeting took place. The German guy was saying no, it's got to be done. This to German commissioner, and in the end, the WBC guy came in. I said, look, this is your title. This is what happened at the rules meeting. As long as they don't tape over the knuckles. That's where we are. Past the knuckles, that's where we are. Is that what we agree? And he said, yes. They started complaining. I said, well, it's very simple. We either follow what this guy says, or there is not going to be a fight. And I'm telling you, that's how it is. So we go back in the dressing room. This took about 20 minutes or so. It caused a big delay. Derek's uptight.
Of course he is.
Very uptight. And it's not right what's going on at this stage. This is not right. I know, you know, we all talk about all the tricks and things behind the scenes. This is their way of getting to Derek. They get into Derek the other way. Derek's too blatant how he does and does stupid things. These guys do it in a more way. So in comes Vladimir, starts staring. I said, you stand there, let the other guy look at him, wrap the hands, and Dean wraps the hands, and that was out. I said, by the way, there's going to be a late ring walk because I'm not having him coming out rushed. He'll warm up properly. It's an important night, so we're not moving until he feels he's right. So that was it. So then we go to the ring.
Let me stop you there before we get into the ring. Now, Cole, you've heard what Frank said there, and you know the history of the two fights that didn't happen, and the aggravation in the corridor and the aggravation in the changing room. But does that excuse in any way what went on in the ring with the spitting?
You cannot defend the indefensible. Now, where I come from, in the East End of London, if somebody spits in your face like that, I admire Vladimir's self-control. I expected, when I saw that happen, that Vladimir was going to belt him one. Because I say, where I come from, that was what would have happened. I mean, in this country, we used to complain bitterly when Latino footballers spat in the faces of our players. It's abhorrent to anybody, but to the British, it's worse than being kicked or slapped or punched, to me. It is a despicable act, and you know you can't condone it. You can't. I know he was wound up, but I've seen other people get wound up before fights, but he wouldn't dream of doing that.
But what was Vladimir doing there in his face?
Hang on a minute. Well, I agree with Colin. It is indefensible. It shocked me. I never expected it. It's wrong. No one's trying to, in any shape or form, say that. What I'm saying is what was happening behind the scenes. And again, you just made the point. So what is Vladimir doing in his face again? Why is he there? He's not fighting Vladimir. What's he doing there?
Well, he's taking something back from the slap on behalf of his brother, probably, because they are close. There might as well be twins.
That may be the case. They can be twins. They can all be doing this. But at the end of the day, that was what was going on. And Colin, for some, it's like you typing out, you doing your job, typing your report out, and somebody comes in and tears it up, and you've got to file it in immediately. It's torn up into shreds. You start again. It's wrong. What they did was wrong, and what Derek's response to it was outrageous and terribly wrong. But let's not make out they're angels, because they're not. And remember, he's gone through quite a thing with Vladimir. There's a lot of pent up anger there with Derek. Derek's not the most subtle guy, as you obviously see.
He does what he does.
He's done some silly things, you know, stupid things that I know now he regrets. He regrets doing them. There's no doubt about it. Everybody in boxing regrets that it happened. It is indefensible. I'm not trying to defend it. What I'm saying is, what would have may have helped the situation in the dressing room had the board representative stayed there and took some responsibility rather than disappearing.
But that's another story.
Well, it's not another story, because what it all is, it's all part of what happened. And that's, you know, you're asking why these things happen. I'm telling you what's going on in the background, which nobody knows about.
Nothing can be taken in isolation. There's a lead up to every single...
It's a circumstance. So, yeah, he's done two really stupid, ridiculous
things
and unforgivable things. However, what I would say is that, you know, you don't let guys get head to head, and you do... And what is the brother doing? Because that's their way of doing it. Every fight, if it's not... whatever brother's fighting, the other brother's in the other dressing room, trying to intimidate him. Really, that shouldn't be happening.
Now, Frank, let me ask you this, and I heard this on the night, and I need you to tell me if it's true or not. Is it true that either you or Derek or whoever it was tried to bring over some security to make sure that Derek's passage through the weigh-in to the fight itself and afterwards? And is it true that is it true that was refused by K2?
First of all, we were only allowed a certain amount of tickets. You've got to remember, you know, listen, I've negotiated my whole life people's contracts, but when you are not in a mandatory position, when you are taking a voluntary defence, if you want the fight, you virtually got to take what it is, and that's what we chose to do. Derek felt that he had to do. We didn't bring any security with us. You know, there was.
Were you told you couldn't, or you didn't take any?
We couldn't take them. They wouldn't have got access to the arena. It's as simple as that.
But was he intimidated on the walk to the ring?
Who?
Was Derek intimidated by the crowd on the walk to the ring?
It's not. It wasn't about that. It's not about where the intimidation took place was in the dressing room. In the dressing room. That's where it's taking place. Guys sitting down, you know, getting his hand wrapped, and he's told, for no reason, because there was nothing wrong, they got to come off. It's wrong.
Now, clear up another thing. Sorry, Colin.
You speak to only, maybe, you know, it's very well for us sitting here. For a fighter, speak to any boxer. When Colin McMillan asked him what he'd like, if his hands were wrapped, and there's nothing wrong with it, you've got to rip it all off.
It happened to Tyson.
Yeah, listen, it happens to, you know, in all fairness, that's a lot of the things that happen. There's certain trainers in America that make every single fighter take advantage of. It's just the way it works. Frank, let me ask you this. Is there a designated time for that inspection? Because I was talking to David Haye, and he said he was told when he fought Vladimir that they were going to come in and see him, let's say 8 o'clock. He knew they weren't going to come in, right, because he'd already spoken to people that had thought him. So he didn't do his hands until they came in, 20 minutes late.
What we said, we'd tell them when we're wrapping hands. And what it was the hands were going to be wrapped roughly. There's about an hour and a half just before the fight. So it's, you know, it's a process that takes time before he warms up, and that's what happened. And in the meantime, we've got, whilst that's all going on, we've got the referee in there, the judges in there. There's no one from anywhere in the other in Vitali's dressing room.
Which is the point you made in an interview with Steve
So what
Lennon.
I said to them, why are you all in here? Why isn't somebody in the other dressing room? Because that's what it was. That's what.
And when it was over, Steve Lillis managed to catch up with Vladimir, and it was very much a case of, yes, I've done my business. It's okay now. I've achieved what I want. I think we can see that. Have we got Steve talking to Vladimir?
Hi, Vladimir. Could you just tell the British TV viewers what the problem was?
Let's go to the locker room.
Just for a second, could you please?
Excuse me. 1 second. One answer.
What the problem was, and is it all solved now?
No, there is certain rules on gauzing and taping the hands, and you have to follow the rules. That's it.
And you're fully satisfied?
So we were following the rules. I've been in this sport for 16 years professionally, and I know exactly what I'm talking about.
You're fully satisfied now?
Yes. So far, so good.
It wasn't up to him to be satisfied.
Of course not.
It's up to the WBC supervisor to be satisfied. That's the only person who can. And he was satisfied. He was very helpful, and he absolutely said, no, this was what we agreed at the rules meeting.
Because there's an interesting thing here, Cole. I know you're itching to say something. There's an interesting thing here with the Klitschko's, and you speak to people that have fought them, either American fighters or their cornermen, and they all tell you the same thing. Everything's lovely until you get to the weigh-in and the fight night, and then they try every single trick.
Well, can I make this point that I've been trying to make?
Go on, Cole.
And Frank knows this better than me, that when you fight a champion in his own backyard, you sit down with your fighter shorty and say, now look, we're going to X, Y, Z. You're thousands of miles from home. you're going to have every dirty trick thrown at you. That's what comes from fighting away from home. They're going to put you in a lousy room in a hotel, the noisiest part of the hotel. You'll hear traffic going past your room till the early hours of the morning. All the tricks of the trade, and you explain that to your fighter that you're not going to get a single favour.
But the mad thing is with the Klitschko's, they don't do that. They just turn it on the night by blocking and being obstructionable. Frank, quickly before we move.
Yeah, of course we know what's going on. I mean, I've been taking fighters away from home for more years than I care to remember, and of course we go through all this and we talk to them. But I'm not condoning the spitting. I'm not condoning the headbutting. What I'm saying is there was nobody. There was no security there, and there's certainly, as far as that was concerned in the dressing room, I've suddenly got a fighter who's going out of his head, you know, being really, and all he can see is Vladimir Klitschko
right in his face,
in the dressing room, laughing at him, and that's where it got to. So he spat at him, outrageous, wrong, but again he was in his face. You know, Derek's not going to be slapping anybody, you know, before the fight takes place. It's just impossible to happen. That was never going to happen, and that's not what it was all about. It's the same thing. But they do it, and they get away with it, and they normally get away with it, and that's what happens. But I must emphasise, I am not condoning what he's did. What I'm saying is that is probably where his state of mind was. Rightly or wrongly, that's where he was.
At that point.
And I was angry about what was going on as well.
Right, now, so before we move on to the next bit, and we do want to get on to this bit, and this is the meat of it, the crunch of it, we're going to have another look at what happened about an hour and a half, in all fairness, after the final bell. This is the bit of the press conference again. David Haye shouting his head off, and I might talk you through what goes down.
Where is he now? Where is he now? You said you want to fight me. I agreed to my
Take him away, I say.
I agreed to everything. Why are you not fighting now?
Excuse me.
You have to box up first against the person over there who showed hard. You showed the toe.
David, how's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe? How's your toe?
3 times in a row.
David, you want to tell me that in my face? You want to tell me my face?
You lost the
You
title.
want to tell me my face?
Tyson threw you
All right,
off.
tell me my face.
David, round, David.
Let go. Excuse me. Stand behind me. You tell me my face. Huh? You want to fight me? Jens, you glossed me. You mad? You glossed me. He glossed me.
You're not free to go.
Stop.
You're not free to go.
He glossed me. What's the British challenge? Put down there. No. He glossed me. He glossed me. He glossed me.
You're right, but
That's what happened after. I'm going to start with you, Frank, from your position up on the podium. Derek to your left. It's been growing. There'd been a press conference before. Then he comes in. He starts shouting and screaming. And then Derek decides to get up and go. Holding the microphone, what's going through your head?
Well, we'll back up a bit, but actually what did happen. What happened was that David came in. He was calling out Vitaly Klitschko and Bernd Bond, who's their manager.
But he'd been there for a while, hadn't he? He didn't come in screaming. The comments have been going on.
I didn't see him coming
Yeah.
all I noticed him is when
Sure.
when he was saying about he was asking Klitschko to fight him. And Bernd Bond, who's their business manager, said words to the effect, no, that's not going to happen. You had your chance. It's a finished business.
Yeah.
And then he suggested that he fights Derek. So I remember, I think I recall, I said, well, that sounds a good idea. Could we make Derek against David Haye and the winner fights Vitaly?
Yeah.
And he said, he either said yes or he nodded. Well, I think he said yes, Bernd Bond. And then they started their stuff between all this. Most of this stuff is like childish stuff. And I think Derek saying about how's your toe, he said to him, you're a loser and you lost your last 3 fights and whatever. And Don Charles, his trainer, said, will the security please remove
Get
that
the security.
man?
Get the
Can
security.
we remove that man?
Okay, which is so you hold you there, Colin. Should David Haye have been there at a fight where he wasn't directly involved other than working with us? Should he have been allowed at the press conference, knowing the volatile nature of one or two of the people involved?
Well, if you've got security there, why not? He was part of the media. He presumably had a media accreditation.
He did, yeah.
Once you have that and you're commenting on the fight, he has every right to be there, in my opinion. Okay. Right? Now, can I... Go on. There's nothing new in this world. It's all happened
yes,
before.
Of course.
30-odd years ago, I attended the Spinks press conference, Leon Spinks, after he beat Muhammad Ali. Yeah. Into the room came a young man called Larry Holmes, a contender, screaming and shouting at Leon about time I got a jump.
Fight me.
Oh, the whole bit.
Yeah.
What shouldn't have happened and what nothing would have happened if Derek Chisora hadn't got out of his chair and walked through to confront David Haye. David Haye then, I understand, threw the first blow. But if Chisora sits in his chair and doesn't move, none of this happens.
But when Chisora gets up, Frank, he's got a microphone and it looks like he's going over so that everyone can hear him ask questions.
First of all, you know, I don't quite agree again with what Colin says here. He's had a hard fight.
Yeah.
And everybody's losing sight of the fight. He actually fought really well.
We're going to do the fight in a minute. We're not going to ignore the fight. We're going to do the fight.
He fought well. A lot of people thought it was going to be a walkover. He gave Klitschko probably the toughest fight, in my opinion, he's had since Lewis. And even won the last round in the fight. You know, the press are talking to him. It's his moment. So in comes, you know, it's all very well he comes in, David Haye. It's not as though David Haye had a fantastic fight against the other brother and you could say he deserved it on the strength of what? No. We got more of a case for a rematch than David Haye asking these guys.
And as much as he was media, I'm going to say this, as much as he was media, he wasn't working there. He was gone. In fact, he was meant to have been in a cab 30 minutes earlier.
So let me,
Frank, then you, Colin, honest.
So now, what does Derek do? He gets off. Remember, he's got his back to me. I don't expect him to get up. He's up, he's gone, and he's got a microphone in his hand. Yep. Now, I can only see the back view, and I didn't see actually what happened.
People close in as they walk.
Most people couldn't see because that's what happened, and that's a fact. But if you look at any of the photographs, I've noticed there's a couple of photographs, I think it's in the Sun and a few other papers, that Derek's got the microphone here, saying what it. But he's not a fist on the microphone. He's holding it with like two fingers, and the others. It's not like he's got it, and it's this. That's how he's holding the microphone. And I don't know. I don't even know what they were saying between the two of them. There's no doubt about it. David Haye has a bottle in one hand, and then it's in another hand, and he hits. You've seen it on there, and he hits him with the bottle. With the bottle, the water goes everywhere, and that's what. And Derek thinks he's been hit with a glass. Now, Derek shouldn't have been there. Quite right. I don't.
And he shouldn't have taken his jacket off on the walk either.
He shouldn't have done that. 100%. But like you're saying, Colin, I've seen lots of provocation at fights and things afterwards. That doesn't give anybody the right to hit you with a bottle.
Yeah. So they're now face to face. What should have happened now? Or should, I'm going to put the words in your mouth, should again, that magic thing, should there have been security somewhere to keep them apart?
First of all, Chisora's trainer should have restrained him from getting up
instead of walking with him.
Instead of walking with him. Right, well, he should have done.
He couldn't get old. He was gone. Right, this fight from here to there, it takes 3 seconds.
He's marching towards Haye, and I must emphasise, I wasn't there. Only what I've seen on television and read in this morning's newspapers. When we see that shot, Chisora's got his back to us. But I would assume that David thought he was walking towards him menacingly. He's saying, you want to fight? And David Haye stupidly threw the first blow. I'm not trying to make an apology for David Haye, don't get me wrong. No. As far as I'm concerned, they're both as guilty in their different ways.
Would you agree with that, Frank? No. You think there's more guilt somewhere else?
No, I don't just question it. I mean, you know, Derek, what he's done is he shouldn't have done. There's no doubt about it. But I don't care. No one can tell me what he did. He did not throw a punch at him. The microphone... looking on the other side, and remember, I've seen the mobile telephone footage of it.
Dozens of different
There's lots of mobile, which the police reviewed when they took Derek in, by the way, and have seen it, and he was released, as you know, without a charge at this stage. But he definitely got hit with a bottle. So it's not he'd punched him, he had a bottle. And then Adam Booth got a cut, which the thing was that he got hit with a bottle. He didn't. He got hit with a tripod.
And let me just say once again, people have been tweeting and saying that we've bottled it, excuse my expression, by not showing the tripod. And I said at the top of the programme, the footage we're showing of the skirmish that's actually from RTL, okay? That's not been edited or touched by us, okay? So and you're right, the tripod incident appears not to be in that footage, but that's not us here at Box Nation.
Sky TV showed it.
Yeah, no, but there's different angles. We want to show quality. We don't want to show something fuzzy.
I understand, but they showed the punch, they showed the water, all the photo. Listen, you've got to be... You know, what's happened, it's disgraceful what's happened, but let's get it right. You know, Derek Chisora done some really ridiculous, some stupid, some horrible things, you know, in that fight, the spitting, whatever, but what getting hit with a bottle, I don't care what anyone says, you don't justify, that's no justification.
Well, I'm not trying to justify that.
I'm not saying you are trying to justify it, but you can't say that, I could argue with you, I can argue with Steve, we can get in each other's face. I can be that far from you. You hit me with a bottle where I come from, I'd hit you back. I would be looking round to hit you back.
Yeah.
You know, that's worse than being spat in the face, being hit with a bottle.
But if you thought you're going to be hit...
Well, you don't know his mindset.
If you think you're going to be hit...
Well, it's a really interesting thing.
Doesn't matter. You might... Listen, then I could think at any time I was going to be hit and lash out at someone and say, my defence is...
I thought he was going to hit me. Yeah, that's not...
Get your defence in first.
In all fairness, I'll tell you one thing, and that footage there shows it, and all the other footage shows it, is that there's plenty of time for Derek to launch several new attacks, and he doesn't. If anything, you actually see Derek kind of holding people back, which I'm sure will be fantastic when it comes to what we're going to be talking about next, the next phase.
And I'm going to say that you can't apologise. No one can apologise for this,
and no one's trying to.
And also, what nobody can do, nobody can condone is it's a bad night for British boxing. It was wrong. End of story. But you know, I managed Derek. I can assure you, behind the scenes, we've had some. Well, he's not had too much to say because I've been doing most of the talking, I suppose, as I always do most of the time. But I've been really laying it on and telling him what he's done wrong and so forth. But I'm telling you now, I don't care what anyone says. He did not throw a punch, and nothing he did justified, no more than it justified him spitting in the other guy's face. Sure. Nothing justified for him being hit with a bottle.
Oh, Frank, if you're the promoter, if you're Bunce, who, by the way, certainly played his role in stirring it up and keeping it going, that's what David blames him in his statement. Yeah. If you're Bunce, you're sitting down there with your security people and the rest of your people, and you're looking for key reasons why it went wrong. Let's put yourself in Bunce's shoes. What's he finding what went wrong today? What's coming to him? Is he saying he shouldn't have been at the press conference? Is he saying he shouldn't have left the table? Is he saying more security? What's he saying?
I think the bottom line of all it, there should have been more security. You know, the guys are, at the end of the day, they're responsible for their actions. Everybody has to be responsible for their actions. I've got a part to play in it. Yeah. You know, I accept my role and I accept that I've made some mistakes as far as that's concerned. I absolutely understand that. The British Boxing Board of Control have got to take some responsibility for some of the things that happened there. The two David Haye and Derek Chisora certainly have got to accept their responsibility. And at the end of the day, the Boxing Board of Control are going to have their hearing and whatever. But everybody's forgetting about what the German police, what they've done up to yet. Yeah. They haven't charged anybody. Nope. They've reviewed more than you're showing in RTL. I've seen more footage than that, much more footage, because it was shown to us on the evening, the early hours of Sunday morning, where people were coming up with their phones and passed their phones over to the police. And you see it. That's because when he said he was glassed, I generally accepted
that it was a bottle being thrown at someone.
I thought somebody hit him with a glass. Yeah, exactly. It's only when we shown the phone you could see the bottle, and it went from one hand to another.
Colin, go on.
If this incident before this incident happened, if it happened in our country, it wouldn't have happened because we have adequate security at the press conferences. If you remember, Bellew and Cleverly. Yeah. Bellew got up from his seat.
Could have been worse than that.
And went to attack Cleverly. Yep. And now security boys immediately moved in and stopped it. Yeah. Now, the German security was obviously hardly any of them there.
It was for the Klitschko's. The German security sticks with the Klitschko's.
It doesn't matter if there would have been 20 security. They couldn't be reading what was going on between our two boys. For one thing, most of them, I'm sure, couldn't speak that good English. Yeah. Whereas our security boys, who are experienced, they know what the fighters are like, they know a volatile situation is about to explode, and they step in before it happens.
Now, a deep contrast in the statements, one issued by David Haye and one issued by Derek Chisora. Let's go, if we can, to the David Haye statement first. They came out almost simultaneously this afternoon, and David said all sorts of things. He says, I am bitterly disappointed to have been part of what transpired on Saturday evening. I realise I am no angel, and he goes on like that. And what he doesn't really do is say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everybody involved. I think I've let everybody down. Now, Derek Chisora's statement follows the traditional type of apologetic statement. He says, I feel I must wholeheartedly apologise for my part in the regrettable scenes both before and after what was to be the biggest night of my career. So David's statement, you know, not necessarily belligerent, not excusing himself what happened, but not necessarily going through it. Now, you know, I think also that Derek Chisora has already been called to the ball. David isn't a licence holder, we understand at the moment, but if he were to apply for a licence, he no doubt would have to go and visit them, and perhaps they'll visit him off the record and have a nice little chat with him. Now, so this is where we are now. It's happened, okay, and it's all very well as saying what could and what should, and you know, in all fairness, there's been an awful lot of people that are not qualified to tell us what should and what could. You two particularly are qualified. So now we come to the end of the night. It's all over. David's fled the scene. Derek's talking to the police, and you're seeing stuff on a mobile phone. Let's fast forward it today in the next 2.
Sorry, the police have seen all this. It's
yes,
not
they've got it.
The police have all this.
Yeah.
They were given that by various passers-by. That's what they did. They reviewed it all overnight, so I understand, and that's what happened. And you know, Boxing Board of Control would do their job and do what they've got to do. But hang on a minute. Now, German police, I think, have a bit more credibility than the British Boxing Board of Control.
Absolutely.
And I want to tell you something. Everybody at the moment, you know, is in a hanging mood, and I can understand why, and they see all that. I just want to go back a couple of years and think of a couple of instances. For example, Errol Christie.
Kayla, 85 October.
Kayla. Terrible things, and you know, racist tones.
Racism for a start, which is totally different to this.
Fights,
alleged.
Well,
no, it's not.
Wound up in a fountain, the whole thing at the press conference. But you know what? Nobody got banned. They let the fight go on.
5 and 10 grand, and a fight happened a few weeks later. Staggering.
And they allowed the fight to go on. Bent and Hyde, another brawl at a fight.
Yeah.
The same thing happened. They let the fight go on. You can go back, even Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier
in the studio,
brawling on the floor in the studio, and the fight went on. So
Lewis and
Rackman was worse because that was over gay jibes. That was really pathetic.
Lewis, and I'll give you and Lewis and Tyson. The ball didn't even call Lennox Lewis. I'm not, you know, whatever happens. But the fact of the matter is all those fights went on, and what gets me, it's disgusting what's happened. No one can condone what's happened. But where were all those people back then? They're talking like this, like they're talking about the fight. You know, they're talking about, like, you know, let's throw everyone out of sport. No, it was Muhammad Ali's birthday on
celebration on Saturday,
and it's Matthew Syed in the Times today saying, you know, this is not like the good old Ali days. I mean, what planet are they on? They don't even know what the good old Ali days were, because they never see these fights. They never see these things. They just get something in their head. Terrible things have happened in boxing, as they've happened in other sports.
Sure.
A few weeks ago, in the tunnel, Man United, Liverpool. Eric Cantona kicking people.
A few months ago, the Pakistani cricketers. But here's
no. I'm talking about violence, and it's not. And what everybody has a responsibility in boxing it's now become a very popular sport as far as youngsters are concerned. I'm talking about fighting. I'm talking about training and so forth. And an example that these guys should be examples. You know, one was a former world champion. The other is a British and Commonwealth. They owe that to people to do it. But please, please, everybody talk about the history and things that happen where these things happen, and then they let the fights go on.
Frank, Colin, I'm going to ask you. I know you want to say something. I'm going to ask you a question that you will specifically be able to answer. Let's go back 35 years, and you're on the trail. You're on the boxing beat, properly on the boxing beat. You've got your little portable typewriter. Trust me, with all the stickers from places you've been around the world. Don't worry, I've seen you with that. Yeah. And you've got your pad. You're old school. You're going out there. How different would this have been covered 35 years ago? Let's imagine this had happened before Richard Dunn and after Richard Dunn fought Ali. Let's imagine.
There wouldn't have been such, shall we say, a number of TV cameras.
Of course not.
The quality wouldn't have been the same.
Of course not.
But it would have caused an uproar. Just Just the same. Kayla, I mean, that was 20, was it?
85 it was.
Yeah, but how many years ago? 27 years ago. It was on the front pages of every national
It was on the
newspaper.
front pages, but I can remember that at the time because I was working for Boxing News, writing stuff at the time. And let me tell you something, there were no calls for the whole sport to be banned and these guys to be banned for life. It was 10,000 and 5,000, which is a record at the time. But listen, but here's the one thing I want to make here, and maybe one of you are trying to make it. I hope you're not trying to make this point, Colin. Is that I don't want to look back at what happened in the past, but to somehow justify what we saw on Saturday night. Because to even place it contextually. It happened, it was a unique event and a unique series of events that led to what you've seen, those shocking 150 seconds of scenes. Go on, Colin.
Precedence is part of our British justice system.
Sure.
You do look back at what happened and what was put right then. So there's nothing wrong in looking back at the past, as Frank has done, quite rightly.
Sure.
And as he said, all those fights were allowed to go. What really upset me on Sunday morning, I've spent nearly 50 years covering this sport, and I have always been saying it's a force for good. Young men are taught discipline. They're taught to fight the good fight, and at the end of it, hug, kiss, do what you like, and that discipline went out of the window, whoever's fault it was, and I'm afraid it made me and a lot of my colleagues who promote boxing in a different way to Frank look foolish.
Okay, Scott,
it embarrassed me.
Okay, so to close up this part of it, to get rid of all the bad stuff, what happens to the two? What do you think, or what do you want to happen to the two of them? You come second here, so let's you go, Colin.
When Tyson chewed off Holyfield's ear,
Yep.
he was fined $3 million and banned for a year.
Yep.
I think the pair of them, well, we can't ban Haye because he hasn't got a licence.
But let's assume he has got a licence. Let's assume he has.
Yeah, no. Chisora should have a hefty fine and a lengthy ban. Barry McGuigan said on a radio station I was on this morning he should get banned for 6 months, which is nonsense because he wouldn't fight for 6 months anyway.
So a year or longer?
It should be at least a year, if not longer. He's got to be hurt where it will hurt him most, in the pocket.
Okay, Frank, what do you think should happen?
Well, first of all,
if you don't want to prejudice your case.
No, first of all, as far as the slapping is concerned, the WBC have already ordered that $50,000 be deducted from his purse, pending a hearing. And then once they have the hearing, they'll determine whether they're going to fine him $50,000 or if they, whatever they're going to do about it. And then obviously there'll be representations made. So you can't charge him twice for the same thing, in my opinion. It's WBC's title. They will deal with whatever they've got to do there. With regarding the rest of it, I believe, and I always have been led to believe, that there is a system for people to actually go before, whether it be a court, a tribunal, whatever, that you give your side of the story before people start saying what should happen, and look at the evidence that's there. At the moment, far as I understand, the German police have done that and released him without charge, and I believe that the Boxing Board of Control will have a hearing and they will review that evidence and obviously take statements and so forth, and then whatever they decide will be their decision. It'll be up to Derek if they decide to ban him, whether he appeals that and goes through a process or not. But you go through the process. It's like saying, hang him now.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but that's what everybody's doing. He
should be punished.
Well, whether he should be punished or not, we've seen RTL and the Italian. There's other footage, and there's been a lot of photographs. And you look at some of those photographs. Obviously, they will all be presented, and it'll be up to the Board of Control to determine what was what. It was unacceptable. I'm not saying for 1 minute anybody should get off lightly or without punishment, but at the end of the day, like everything, you go through the process, and the process then determines what will happen. Okay,
response each, Colin.
Well, a lot of my journalist colleagues, including a man who was a table tennis player, I understand, are saying that boxing is in complete decline, and some even saying the whole of boxing should be banned, which is as moronic as the behaviour of the two men. I mean, it's, do you ban football because of what Eric Cantona does?
Or do you ban football because of Keenan Vieira? Of course you do.
Exactly.
And does it reflect on other footballers what two people do in a moment of
99.9% of boxers throughout the world behave impeccably before, during and after the fight.
Correct.
Boxing, they say, is in the gutter. Boxing isn't in the gutter. Those two men are in the gutter.
Yep. And now, okay, what we'll do now, because we've had a bit of a barney there. Let's talk about what happened once the bell sounded until the bell finished, okay? Because I've got to be honest with you. I was getting texts from people inside there saying, "This is brilliant. This is fantastic. This is the best we've seen of Klitschko." Frank, what was your take on the fight? You must have been getting excited by about round 5 or 6.
As I said from the beginning, a lot of people saying he was going to go 6, 8 rounds as soon as Klitschko. I knew that Derek was fit. I said that before the fight. After the Alanius fight, he stayed in training because I felt I could make the fight. He did that. He got himself in some fabulous condition. And for me, the fight was all about making Klitschko work. The work rate. You know, he's 40 years of age. You know, making this guy work every minute of the round, pressing up on him. As I said to Derek and said, you know, my view of it was that, you know, if you can get under these guys' jabs and their long shots, both the Klitschkos, they don't fight too well inside. Most people allow them to dictate the pace of the fight and how the fight's going to be. And that's what Derek did. He was lacking in experience. I mean, you know, the other, Vitali's, what's he now? He's had 45, 48 fights.
Yeah, at least. And
Derek's had 17 fights, which is relatively a novice compared with him. But he did make him work every round. The scoring I thought was ridiculous. I thought, you know, Klitschko won it by about 4 or 5 rounds, in my opinion. And Derek was so up for it. Even in the last round he was taking the fight. He won the last round.
And Colin, were you surprised at how good a performance he put up?
Well,
and how long it went?
Richard Maynard, Frank's press chief, phoned me on Friday and said, "Will I make a prediction?" And I said, "Well," he said, "Can you see Chisora winning?" I said, "No way." I said, I think he might be stopped in the later rounds, but it wouldn't surprise me if he took him the distance because of Klitschko's age. Anything can happen when a man is 40. So, and I said his speed might cause Klitschko a lot of problems, which it did.
I wonder what the odds were on Derek winning the final round of a 12-round decision, even though he didn't get it on all scorecards.
I mean, I didn't have a bet on it.
I wouldn't know what the odds were.
Later. But no, the fact is, you know, he fought him better. He gave him the hardest fight he's had since Lennox Lewis. And I know he's talking about the 40. These guys are in like Bernard Hopkins. They're in fabulous condition. You know, and as I say, they normally beat guys. A lot of guys are beat before they go in the ring. Derek, whether he's a bad guy, whatever you want to say about him, has self-belief in his ability. And it's a great shame what's happened. And it is a great shame because, you know, I really think, you know, another sort of 5, 6, maybe 7 fights under his belt, he could wind up becoming a world champion.
I say, Klitschko's won't last forever. No. So say in 2 years they're both gone off the scene and Chisora's being allowed to continue his career, he'll be in the mix.
And finally, Frank, thanks very much, Colin and Frank. Finally, Frank, Haye against Chisora. You talked about it on the podium. You talked about it at the press conference. Still, people are talking about it. If let's assume they don't get bans, let's assume they don't get bans. Let's assume they get fines, and let's assume you've already talked to Chisora. Obviously, let's assume you can go for Adam Booth, talk to Haye. Is that a fight that you would make, even allowing for what happened in Germany?
You know, as I said this morning, it's not one I would do. But I'll tell you something. You know, that fight, if somebody announced that now, whether it's a year's time, whatever it may be, is a stadium fight, rightly or wrongly, whatever you want to say. But I'll tell you what, people will show up, will go out for it. And on all these guys who've come out and said they should be banned and not go, they'll all be sitting there reporting on it. You know, that's what happened. They talk about, you know, about me as a promoter, what I would do. I'm coming out and saying I wouldn't promote the fight. But I'll tell you what, if that is made, that fight, they will all be to a man at ringside.
Colin, finally.
If that fight is allowed to happen by the authorities, I'll be very surprised if this promoter here, the biggest in Europe, isn't bidding for that fight. And I can say, you know, we're not naive. We know what's happened. We've really slammed the both of them. If that fight was announced tonight, Frank was to say those two men are going to fight in 18 months' time, whatever stadium you like, all the tickets will be gone by midday tomorrow.
Frank, thanks very much for coming in. Colin, thanks very much for coming in. Well, we've had a rather extended start to this evening's 90-minute boxing hour. I know that's a contradiction in terms, but right now let's take a well-earned few seconds. You enjoy these adverts. See you in a minute.